I am Sherman Dorn. I am a professor of education at the University of South Florida College of Education in Tampa. I am by training an historian of education, and my research interests focus on policy since World War II. Things such as marginalization of students who drop out of high school, how we became concerned about high school, accountability policy for K-12 schools, special education, and the various educational reform movements that have been common since World War II. What I try to do in my research is explain the connections between the expectations we hold for public schools as a society, the way that schools behave, and the ways that we try to get policy to get the schools to where we want them to be. And usually it is a very crooked path between the practices that we see in schools, the goals that we have, and the weird ways that policy tries to get schools from one to the other. I think that there is a way to get out of this trap of believing that some algorithm, statistical formula can adequately apply labels and make judgments about performance of schools. And the way out is to understand that yes, in large states such as Florida, Texas, New York, California, it's okay to use these algorithms to screen schools for additional examination. That it's okay to say, okay, these 10% of schools in the state of New York need much closer examination because something about it triggers, hey, we need to take a closer look. But that final judgment of, okay, is there actually a problem? What is the problem? What do we do about it? Can be done by human beings with appropriate professional training, with the time to go in and observe what's actually happening on the ground in a school, and who have the professional experience to know what is likely to improve the situation. The current solutions that we have in education policy are as rigid as the algorithms in No Child Left Behind. Fire half of the staff, fire all of the staff, bring in charter management organizations, as if suddenly we could wave a magic policy wand and get rid of the problems that we see in schools. And it just doesn't work that way. It inevitably needs people with a rich understanding of what appropriate professional practice is to solve the problems that are deeply embedded in a minority of schools in the United States. The way that politicians commonly talk about schools today is that the main job of schools is to make sure the United States is economically competitive. A lot of parents would agree with that to some extent. They want their children to come out of school with enough skills and knowledge to be able to make their way in the world. All of us as parents, and I'm a parent of 2 children, want our children to be thriving, contributing members of society as adults. But I also deeply care, and I believe most of my fellow parents also want their children to be reliable citizens, to have good judgment about the world, to be good neighbors, to enjoy and contribute to the creation of art and culture in this society. And that can't necessarily be captured very well in annual reading and math scores. It's something that we argue about, and we should argue about. And it should not be left to a statistical formula as to which schools must jettison everything other than reading and math, and which schools are permitted to have an education that is as rich and diverse as I think the majority of parents want their children to experience. Some parents are going to emphasize the instrumentalist economic value of schooling. Others are going to emphasize more the human development, the artistic. All of us have this sort of blend of desires we want. And fundamentally, in individual schools, that has to be a human conversation about what's required to address specific issues in that school.